Camera, action.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about my most disappointing films of 2025. So this will be a list of movies that were disappointing to me, and they're not going to all be horror movies. This is kind of just a genre blend of all the genres that came out this year. And I don't know if I'm really going to rank these by any means. I think I'm just going to go through and talk about them. I have 10 of them. Next up, there was a movie that came out called The Fountain of Youth. It was a Guy Ritchie movie. And I love the cast in this movie, and this was a movie that was, I think it was on Apple TV. The reason I was looking forward to this movie, one, is Guy Ritchie has been on this super high for me. Like, he has just knocked it out of the park with, like, the last string of movies he's done. From The Gentleman to Wrath of Man to Operation Fortune, I really, really enjoyed. The Covenant, I really loved. I even really liked the Ministry of Warfare one that he did. I thought that one was really good. It wasn't my favorite that he's done in the last few years, but I still really enjoyed it. And for him to follow it up with this, I just felt like this was a huge bit of a step down for him. I love the cast that is in this movie. I especially love John Krasinski. He's just such a great actor, and he's somebody that I love as a director. But this movie, I was like, when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's going to be like this swashbuckling Indiana Jones style, adventure movie. And then I was like, oh, and it's done by Guy Ritchie, so that's a win-win. And while it was kind of that, I just was not interested in the story at all. I found the characters weren't that interesting, and I really lost interest in this movie within the first 30 minutes. Like, nothing really hooked me into it. Nothing really just captured my attention. And they try to do this overall, like, kind of twist on who the villain was, and it's something you kind of see coming from the beginning, and you're kind of just like, yeah, all right. So yeah, this was a disappointment for me because I was like, ooh, Guy Ritchie, and like he's established so far in these last few movies that it's just something that I'm really looking forward to, and I know he's got a movie coming out in 2026, and I really, really hope it's leaps and bounds above what this movie was. So that is The Fountain of Youth. Another one on my list is Leigh Whannell's Wolfman. This is one of those movies that I had really high hopes for because I absolutely love what Leigh Whannell did with The Invisible Man, and I feel like this movie was I don't I don't know, I just feel like this was more of a safe bet for him. It just kind of felt like he had to kind of do this movie out of obligation to Blumhouse, and maybe he kind of didn't want to do it. So I hope really his next thing is more of something, back to the roots of something he wants to do. And I heard through somebody that ran into him at a certain con said that, yeah, Blumhouse is very IP driven nowadays. So I feel like that was kind of his way of being like, yeah, this is something that I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it the way that I wanted to, or something of that nature. So I hope that he's back doing what he wants to do after this. But this movie was just so disappointing. I have a massive, massive love for werewolf movies, and the original Wolfman from Lon Chaney Jr. did, I hold very close to my heart because it's a movie that I saw when I was really young, and that to this day is still the staple of how the werewolf makeup looks to me. It's like that is the perfect makeup, and I nothing has ever beat that for me. And that's a huge make or break thing in a werewolf movie for me because they've done so many movies to where it doesn't even look like a wolf, or it doesn't even look like anything remotely to what I would consider a werewolf or a wolf man. And when I first saw the images of this movie for the thing that they did for Halloween Horror Nights, I was like, there is no way that is what that's going to look like. That's just a costume, obviously, with the effects and stuff that they have with post production and a great makeup team. They'll do fine. I was a little worried, I can't lie, but at the end of the day, I was like, they'll do fine. So after seeing, when I went to go see the movie, I was like, and it's like, I just the design of the wolf was just not there. The story was not there. This is more of a family drama with a little bit of werewolf stuff wrapped around in it. And I don't know, it's like Also, this movie, like it was trying to say something under the surface, and I just don't think they really nailed it with that, with what if that's something they were really going for. And at the end of the day, just after the success of The Invisible Man and like the height that movie was for me and how good it was, I was like, this was just a really, really big letdown for me. Next up will be Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. While this movie is still a damn good movie, it's one of those things to where it did not reach the height of the other films. I think for me personally, this was a franchise that each movie got better as it went, and that's not saying that the previous movie was, worse or bad or anything, but these movies felt like they just built and built and built off of each other, almost to the point to where I was like, how are they going to top this for each movie that came? And somehow Tom Cruise and his team and everything did such a good job with the storytelling and how they went about the stunts and everything, and they always did it. To me, it peaked with Fallout, because the way the finale of Fallout was just perfect cinema. Like, there was just something about that movie from the start to the end. It was just an adrenaline rush of a movie. And I feel like with these last two, Final Reckoning and Dead Reckoning, that was it. I just felt like with those two movies, it was almost a slower paced movie. Especially, I don't know, I kind of felt that way when I saw Dead Reckoning. I was like, well, maybe this is going to be the movie that kind of builds a lot of that stuff up. And I'm not one to kind of bash on slower movies, because I really like slow-paced movies when the stories are interesting. And yes, I do really believe this story is interesting, and I like the whole angle they were going for. So I thought maybe the second one would be more of that, this is the end game. This is a massive, big deal of everything they set up in the first one. And it kind of is that, but there's really only two major sequences in this movie, and one being the underwater sequence, and the one being at the end where he's, doing the crazy stuff that he's doing off the plane, which is super impressive. And while all that is really great, at the end of the day, though, I just don't think it builds to what Fallout had. It never builds to that tension, or at least to me, that overall feeling of that story, like we're all in massive danger. Even though this feels like a bigger threat that is in these last two movies, just something about the threat level in Fallout, it just felt bigger. To me, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all movies that are just fantastic, and they're just such a great collective group of movies. And like I said, these last two movies just never got there. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie, because it is not. But it's just one of those movies to where it's like you get to the peak of the mountain, and then this big slump happens, and you're kind of disappointed on, like, wow, this is really marketed as the last one, and that's kind of how they went out on it. You're like, I just really wish there was just something more in there that really got to that level that Fallout did. And that's the other thing with this last Mission Impossible. It is so long because there's so many remember berries in here that it's just like, oh, we got a flashback to this, or this person connects to this. Remember this is why this is here. That's cool and all, but I feel like there was a lot of that we did not need. And I get, again, this was going to be supposedly the final one, or at least the final one for right now. We'll see what happens. But overall, this was just a pretty big, massive disappointment. Next up, we have a movie called Until Dawn. Now, before you guys come at me, I already knew going into this movie that it wasn't going to be the video game. It wasn't going to, even come close to what the video game was. And I know they weren't following the story of the video game, because that's per usual. That is the same crap that every other video game movie adaptation tries to do. They just take elements from the movie, or just take elements from the game and shove it into the movie and write their own story around it and call it a day. But I had faith in this director. I really like the director. I think he does really great horror movies, and I hope he stays in the horror genre, because he does such a great job with horror. And I did like the concept that they were going to go with it. I thought it was a cool concept. When I first heard the stuff about, we're not following the story, doing our own thing, like everybody else, I was like, why? But then I heard the story of how they're going to do this element to it, to where it's going to have like this Groundhog's Day kind of thing to it, to where, they have to survive the night in order to, make it out of this situation alive. I was like, okay, that's a cool concept, because with that, you're able to kind of bring some of those elements of the game. You're kind of be able to bring some of those creatures and those things that were what made the game so iconic. You could still kind of do that while having an interesting story to it. Unfortunately, that was not the case in here at all. I thought maybe there was a couple good sequences, and other than that, I was like, and there's a couple of entertaining moments with the deaths and things like that. But other than that, it was just another one of those mediocre video game adaptations where I'm just like, just follow the game. And they do the classic thing at the end of this movie where it shows like it sets up how the original game starts, so almost like it's going into the game now. And I'm like, why do you people do this? Just please stick to the video game, please. Next is the supposedly last movie in the Hell House franchise, which is Hell House Lineage. And I just put out a review for this movie. It's extremely late because I saw it. I couldn't see it in theaters, so I saw it on Shudder. And I've had the review for a couple months now, and I completely forgot that it had it, so I just now put it out. So apologies. So if anybody wants to check out all of my thoughts on it. But briefly, I'll just say, yeah, this movie was extremely disappointing. There was, that's essentially the word that I used pretty much through the majority of that review. This was supposed to be the final conclusion to this franchise, and somehow they ended up uncovering 5 or 6 more things that leads to more questions, and just ends on this note where I literally went, is that it? Is that how it ends? You just unboxed a whole thing of brand new questions, and you didn't wrap up anything. There was nothing here that was wrapped up at all, and they took away the found footage element, which I thought was a huge just why on their end, because the found footage element to this movie in particular, especially how the other ones are and how they flow so well, that just, to me, it took all the creepiness away from it. There's something with that found footage model that just, it's almost synonymous with these movies, and it just fits so well. So to take that out and kind of, do something else with it, I mean, going with the traditional style, that's fine, but I would have done it with something else, not this movie in particular. So there's just a lot of, like I said, there's just a lot of stuff in here that they want you to remember from the other movies. And there's a part of me when I was watching it, I had to stop and Google what characters they were referencing to, or what of this event they were referencing to. And I just watched the whole franchise again a few months before watching this movie, and I still was like, what the hell? So they ask a lot of the audience to remember a lot of stuff. And there's a part of me where I was like, even if you were a diehard Hell House fan, I still don't know if you'd be able to remember all this stuff that they want you to remember, that they throw at you, that they're like, hey, remember this? This is this from this and this and that. So it didn't really like I said, it didn't tie up anything. It just left you with more questions than answers, and really left you on a note where I was like, that can't be it. So supposedly, the director said he's got another idea up his sleeve or something that he wants to do. I don't know if it'll happen. I think he said he's not going to direct this one if he does it, so I don't know. And this is a movie, too, that I heard nothing but bad things about from the get-go. I heard it's not good at all. I heard the reviews coming out of the theater of people that seen it, and I'm just one of those people where I'm like, I still really want to check it out. I really want to see it because I'm one of those people that I just want to form my own opinion. And yeah, unfortunately, it's on this list. Next up, we have a Netflix movie called Havoc. When I first heard about this movie, I was like, okay, Tom Hardy with the director of the guy that did the Raid movies, absolutely, I'm there. I'm 100% in. That sounds amazing. That sounds great. I cannot wait for that. And then they're like, oh, it's going to be a Netflix original. And I'm like, that could go either way. And I don't know where this movie went wrong. I watched this movie and I never got into it. I never, ever got into the story. I never got into anything that was going on. I didn't care about any of these characters, and it just felt like it dragged on. And that could have been because I wasn't invested in it. And I don't know. I love Tom Hardy. I love him so much as an actor. And I was like, dude, this pairing is perfect. But even the action sequences were not anywhere close to what they could have done. And it's like, dude, you've got the guy from the Raid movies, who did the Raid movies. your action sequences should be top notch and on par, and they're not even close to that. I don't know if it could have been a budget thing due to it being a Netflix movie or what, but I don't know, man. Something was just with this movie that I just found super disappointing. Like I said, I couldn't get into the story. I didn't care about the story because I didn't care about the characters. And at the end of the day, I was like, I don't really care about anything that's going on in this movie. I said, you've just got a mediocre movie at the end of the day. And like I said, that's so disappointing coming from the creative team and the actors that are involved in this. So yeah, that's why. Next up, we have a movie called Hell of a Summer, and this was a movie that I was so excited for because when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, this movie is right up my alley. It's a throwback to 80s slashers. It's a throwback to not only that, but 80s camp slashers, which I was like, that is awesome. It's like my bread and butter. So that's something that I was 100% all in for. I was like, yes, absolutely. I need that now. And when I went to go see it, while I did enjoy a lot of it, kind of figured out who the killers were at some point, and that's something I try not to do because I like to be surprised by the reveal, so I try to take myself out of that part of it. And then once they're revealed, their motivation is revealed, and that's not too great either, and you're kind of just like, okay, and it just kept getting more and more disappointing as that went on. And there's not a lot of kills. I mean, there is kills, but they're off screen. They didn't go the full 80s, thing that, how the trailer made it look like it would go. It's a lot more comedy, which is fine. I really love horror comedies as well. So I look at this movie more on the comedic side than I do a horror movie, but it has a good mix of comedy and horror, but it's really, at the end of the day, much more of a comedy movie. And like I said, that's cool if you're going to go that route. But if you're going to go, I wish it had kind of that Happy Death Day flavor, and it's got a little bit of that in it, especially with how it does the cutaway kills and whatnot. And I don't know, in this movie, I think this movie was rated R, if I remember correctly, but I feel like it doesn't use its rated R to its full extent that I was hoping that it would go to, and it never gets to that horror slasher thing that I was really hoping for, that I was really excited for. So at the end of the day, I was just really left disappointed. Another one this year that left me very disappointed was the new Superman movie. Now, before I get into all this, I just want to say that no, I did not like it because I'm a Zack Snyder fan and all that crap that goes on. I love James Gunn, and I really like Zack Snyder as well. It has nothing to do with that. And this was a movie that really I wasn't all that interested in to begin with. The reason I got kind of excited about it is because I'll admit, when I first saw these trailers for this movie, they did absolutely nothing for me, nothing whatsoever. But I think it was like a week or so before the movie came out, I started watching people's reactions on YouTube to this trailer. And these people that were getting so emotional because they were so connected to the Christopher Reeves movies and how this is the Superman that they've been wanting and missing and needing in their life and all that stuff, I found myself maybe more drawn to that. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll give this movie a chance. I said, I'm going to go in this movie open-minded. I'm willing to, accept things or whatever. And I don't know. This is a movie that I have no desire to rewatch. I have not watched it since the theaters, and it's just too comedic for me. There's so many moments in the movie that were almost like could have been a serious moment or played more of a serious note that would have had more stakes. And it kind of has that MCU formula to it where it's ruined by a joke. And you could argue that that's James Gunn, and I know that's James Gunn's writing at all, but I felt like even in Guardians of the Galaxy, there's moments that he had that were very serious, and they didn't ruin them with a joke. And in this movie, there are certain scenes that are serious that I don't feel are long enough. I feel like they're very shortchanged, and I don't know. It was one of those things where I really wish the tone was different, but I know people love this movie. This was the one that, this is the Superman that they wanted. And my biggest thing for me is I have yet to have a Superman movie or a movie actor that I've loved. Now, don't get me wrong, Henry Cavill is probably, and The Man of Steel is probably my favorite Superman movie that's came out. And again, it's not a Zack Snyder thing or any of that crap. It's just that's the one that's worked for me the most. because I'm not a fan of the Christopher Reeves movies. Personally, I tried to watch them when I was a kid, and I just could not get into them. Even as a kid, I thought they were just too like tonally goofy for me, and they just were not for me. And I know people love those movies, and that's great, and I champion that. I'm so happy for you. My Superman has always been George Reeves from The Adventures of Superman. So my growing up has always been I've wanted another Superman like that, and I don't think we've ever got anybody close to that. And it's just, and that's a huge nostalgic tie to me, and that's a personal thing for me. It's probably why I feel the way that I do, and I don't know, just that those Adventures of Superman as a kid, those worked for me. So when I got into the Christopher Reeves movies, I was like, tonally, this just is goofy, and I don't like it. So I've tried to watch them again as an adult, and they just still don't work for me. I didn't like the Brandon Routh one. I tried to watch that one recently, and it was I don't know. It's not for me. I found that one really, really slow and boring, and I wasn't into the story of that one. And like I said, Man of Steel just worked for me the best. It's not my favorite, and by any means, it's still The Adventures of Superman. That TV show is still my favorite. George Reeves' portrayal of Superman is still my favorite, and he's still my favorite Clark Kent. So, like I said, I have that in the back of my brain, and I need to try to figure out how to kind of, wipe that and go into this, these newer movies with a better mindset, and that's what I try to do with this one. But still, at the end of the day, I really left severely disappointed. It just wasn't. This one wasn't for me. And all the people that love it and love the Christopher Reeves movies because it kind of gave you that Christopher Reeve feeling again, that's great. I'm truly happy for you, and that's what I love about art. Some art works for certain people, and others it doesn't work for them. So to all the people that did love this and enjoy it, I'm so happy you got that Superman that you wanted, and that feeling of whatever it be, the nostalgia or whatever that feeling you guys had for this movie. I'm so happy you got that. But this one, at the end of the day, it wasn't for me. Next up on the list, we have the newest version of I Know What You Did Last Summer. This was one that, while I know there's not a lot of people that are huge fans of the original, I really enjoy the original. I really love Kevin Williamson. That's why I just love his writing. I love these certain franchises that he's created, and I love other stuff that he's written. So this was a movie where I was like, all right, cool, because I'm very curious to see where they have taken Jennifer Love Hewitt's character and Freddie Prinze Jr. character, and that's where I wanted to see. Really, I was more interested in seeing them as these legacy characters than I was any of the new characters. That was my biggest thing about this movie. I didn't care about any of the characters in this movie. I could care less about our teenagers that they're supposed to be in this. And I know you can argue that, oh, that's a slasher movie for you. But my thing is that in the original, I genuinely liked all of those people. I cared about those people. I at least gave somewhat of an inkling of caring for those people. In this movie, I didn't care. The only people I cared about in this movie was Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. And honestly, it feels like Jennifer Love Hewitt was kind of wasted. She kind of pops up here and there, and it's almost like they cut half of her scenes, or she just showed up for a day, and they're like, okay, this is all we really have for you, so that's it. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but I hated how they took the third act and what they did with the killer reveal and who they made the killer and all that stuff. It makes no sense to me. It doesn't work for me, and I'm like, so at the end of the day, I just and then they teased it at the end for a possible sequel to this movie, and I don't know how I feel about that, or if that's really going to work. And I don't know. There's just a bunch of stuff and there's a lot of dialogue between our teenage characters that it just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like a real conversation. It doesn't feel like how these people would talk to each other. And I don't know. At the end of the day, I was like, this is one that I went into. I was like, this is awesome. I can't wait. This is something that I really want to see especially our two legacy characters. I really want to see what they've been up to, what they've been doing. And I don't know. This one really, I just was not a fan of this one. This one really disappointed me. And lastly on this list, we have the newest Conjuring movie, The Conjuring: The Last Rites. The more that I've talked about this movie with people and thought about this movie, the less that I enjoy it. Again, it's just one of those movies where it was like Mission Impossible, where I'm like, okay, this is built up as this last final movie, so I hope it's got some high stakes. I hope to see what they're going to do with it. I hope that it's better than the third one, and I'll be honest with you, I would rather watch the third one than this one. This is a movie where I would like to have known more about the family, and I feel like the whole family is kind of sidetracked in this movie to kind of deal with the daughter of the Warrens, which I felt like they could have done that in a different way, or they could have just had their own story. They could have saved that for maybe a spin-off movie or something that they wanted to do. But I feel like there's maybe 2 or 3 scenes with this family this entire movie, and they connect that with a mirror, and I think there's a lot of stuff with this family that didn't happen that they put in this movie, which I know that's with all these Conjuring movies, but I just don't understand and then the so-called demon or ghost that was in this, they connected it to this family to just connect back to the Warren's daughter and all that stuff, and I'm like, but what about the actual demons or demon or ghost or whatever it was that was actually in this family's house? Why couldn't we have just focused on that? Why did we have to focus on all this other stuff? I said there was a way that I feel if they wanted to go that route, like I said, they could have done it in a spinoff, or they could have. I feel like there's another way that they could have intertwined it in this movie where it could have, I don't know, been a little bit less of a focus, but you still could have had more focus on the family, but still had that in there, almost like as a side thing, and still kind of paid it off. It was just one of those things where I just don't understand why they chose to go the direction they did for this movie, and I don't know, to me, it just wasn't this final send-off that I was like, to me, The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 are both fantastic movies, and I'm not one that is huge on demonic possession movies just because they've been done to death or anything or haunted house movies, again, because they've been done to absolute death. But those movies, I think, with the magic of James Wan and all of his team and whatnot, I feel like those two are really, really good, and they just have a really, really good, strong story. And the other two, like I said, the third one and this one, they just didn't come close to that. And like I said, I would much rather watch the third one than I would over this. And I have, and it's funny because this is a movie where I've talked to other people and I've talked to friends of mine who have been like, this movie, they went on a date and the movie actually scared who they were on a date with. And I had another friend I talked to, he said, oh, this is probably my favorite Conjuring out of all of them. And I'm like, okay, man. I said, that's a take, but I said, that's your opinion. That's the beauty of it. So it's just, for me, it did not work for me. And I don't know why they chose to kind of sidetrack the family and go the route they did, but that's just me. So that's my list of my most disappointing movies of this year. When I was making this list, I was thinking to myself, I was like, to me, this wasn't the greatest year for movies. And I don't know, I seem to be on an island with that, but then when I was making this list, there was these definitely stood out to me as yes, these definitely disappointed me more than a lot of others. And well, like I said, some of these are still really good movies, and I would watch them again now, especially that I know kind of what I'm going into. But at the end of the day, I was still kind of like, I was just left wanting more from them. So thank you, everybody. That's my list for my most disappointing movies of 2025. I'm very curious to see what 2026 is going to bring, and if this is the video you're finding me on, I have a ton of reviews. I started this channel back in January of 2025, so I've got a whole year's worth of movies to go back and check out. So please do that if you are curious and you like movie reviews, and we just try to have fun over there and whatnot. So love to have you. So I am curious if you guys had any massive disappointments for the year of 2025. Please comment below and let me know what they were. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way I can see you in the next one. Thank you all so much.